Hello everyone, welcome to this tutorial by Zebra Code. In this tutorial, we are going to look at how to calculate the length of an array in C++. There are different ways we can achieve the same result. There are also different ways we can calculate the length of arrays in C++. Sometimes it depends on the version of C++ that you are using. For example, the C++ version 17 will allow you to use the function size to calculate arrays, but that function might not be available in other versions of C++. This tutorial will help us to look at the different approaches that we can use to calculate the length of arrays in C++. Now with that out of the way, let's write some code whereby we will calculate the length of arrays. I am going to use Sublime Text as my code editor. You can use any code editor that you are comfortable with. I have a folder which I called arrays, and inside this arrays folder I have a file which I named arraylength.cpp. You can name it the same way, or you can use any name that you are happy with. Now let's enter some code. Include IOString, include string. These are some header files that we named. We may add some to it later on. Using namespace standard, that's std, int main, return 0. This one is successful. Great. That's all we need for now, but we will be adding more code to it. The sizeof function is the most basic function that you can use to calculate an array in C++. So let's start with it. I will name it example1. Example1 using the sizeof function to calculate the length of array. String planets. Venues, Mercury, Earth, Mars, Neptune, Saturn, Uranus, Jupiter, Pluto. Great. Now we have named the planets. Going to create another variable int planets size of planets divided by size of planets array. Start with the index 0. That could be any index. Now let's print out our array size. See out how many elements are in the planet array. We print planet size there and line. Okay, now save it, and I'm going to run it with C++ version 17. Build system v17, tools, build. Great. Now it was compiled successfully, and it was also run successfully. How many elements are in the planets array? 9. So in our planets array we have 9 elements in it, and it's printed out in here now. How does this work? So this variable planet sizeof is a function in C++, and we call the planet array divided by the size of planets. We use the first index here. Any of the index elements we do, so we just use a 0 here, which is what we are using to divide it. That is why we are getting a 9. So this is one way of calculating the length of an array in C++. So we are going to use another example. We just use sizeof now. Example 2, using a pointer to find the length of an array. To do that, we also need to create some variables. Int years I'm going to enter some years here randomly. 1942, 1953, 1977, 1999, 2000, 2008, 2011, 2014, and 2021. That's okay for now. Now we are going to create another variable to calculate the length. Int num of years, that is number of years, equals, I will explain this in a minute, what I'm doing here. As a reference to years, which is the name of the array, plus 1 minus years. So what we have here is we have int num of years, which is equal to, it's a pointer here, and in bracket we have a reference. We're making a reference to years, which is our array, plus 1. Then bracket close, minus years. This is to calculate the length of the array. Now let's print it out. See out the number of trophies won by years. Here we are going to print out the number of trophies won by years. Save it. Now let's run it. Tools, build. Great. It was compiled successfully and also printed successfully. It says here the number of trophies won by years, 10. So if you look at our array now, the years array has got 10 elements in it, and we have been able to calculate the length now by using a pointer to do the task. That was example number 2. Now let's move on with another example. I will call it example 3. We are going to use the standard template library, the str, and we will use the iterator class in it. I will call it using the standard template library. In this case, we are going to be using the array header file, the standard template library. So we will need to add it as our header file, include array, and one more, include iterator. So with these two header files added, now we can use those features in the standard template library. Now for example 3, I'm going to create a string for seasons. Summer, autumn, winter, and spring. So our array now is array of seasons. Now I'm going to create another variable, int type x equals, we use the distance function begin, seasons, end, seasons. And let's print it out to the screen. See out, there are x elements in a year. See out, there are x, which is our array of int elements in a year. Now let's save it and print it out in the console. I'm going to use the same build system for C++ version 17. Build. Great. That was built successfully. It says here there are 4 elements in a year. That was in the right sentence. Let me correct that. There are 4 seasons in a year. Now let's save it and print it. Tools, build. Great. There are 4 seasons in a year. So our array here has got 4 elements. Now we are going to run another example, and I will call it example 4. This example is specifically possible with C++ version 17. I'm going to say here using the C++ 17 size function. Here we will use the C++ size function in the standard template library to calculate the length of an array. To do that, you would need to include the iterator header directive or the iterator header file. This will allow you to be able to use the size function in the C++ 17 version. Now to do that, I'm going to create an array and call it ages. It's of data type int, equals, I'll just enter some fictitious ages here. If yours is here, fine. If it is not there, you can add it in your own practice. 12, 23, 18, 34, 29, 56, 42, 67, 71, 79, 88, 91, why not 100? So these are ages for some people. Now we are going to find the size of this array. We need to find the length of this array ages. And to do that, we use cout. The total size of the ages array is size. We are using the size function now in the C++ 17 version. Size. Size of what? Size of ages, because that is the name of our array. End line. And save it and let's run it. First of all, let me clear the screen here. Now we can run it, build it again. Great, that was successful. The total size of the ages array is 13. There was a typo there. We have to remove that. So ages is now spelled correctly. Great, that was compiled and run successfully. The total size of the ages array is 13. So we have got 13 elements in this ages array. That is the length of the array. This is how you calculate it in C++ using the size function, which is available in C++ 17. And it is a part of the standard template library. That was the reason why we added the iterator header file to it. With the iterator header file added to it, we are able to use that size function, which is a part of the C++ 17 version. Great, now let's do one more example. I will call this one example 5. We can also use the iterator feature in the standard template library to calculate the length of an array. The iterator captures the address of the final element and the address of the last element, and then subtract the two values. The result is the array length. In other words, we use the begin and end functions in the standard template library. And how does that work? Let's do it in this example. I am also going to create a variable of type string, and I will name it phones. Need to add some elements to it. Let's begin with Nokia, iPhone, Sony phones, Windows Phone, Samsung, LG. So we have got some phones now entered as the elements of the array. It's time to calculate the length of the array. To do that, I will create another variable of type int, and name it z equals end. We are using the end function here now. End what? End phones. Phones. That is the name of our array here, phones. Now begin, it's another function, begin phones. Now we are going to print it out, cout. The phones array has z end line. We can also print it out in a different way. Now we are going to print it out differently. Cout, the array length is and phones minus begin phones. Okay, now let's save it. I'm going to clear the screen here so that we can print it out one more time. So what we are doing here is simple. Let me quickly explain it to you. We have an array here which we named phones. It has some elements in it, and we are trying to calculate the length of the entire array. So we have created a variable of data type int, and we are using some features in the standard template library. It is the iterator feature. We have the end function, and we have passed phone to it. We are going to subtract the begin phone from the end phone, so that will give us the length of the array. It will iterate through it and give us the total length of the elements in the array. It's just about subtracting two values. Now let's save it and run it. Tools, build. Great. Here it says the phone array has 6 elements. You can see here the array length is 6. Actually, how we delete this doesn't seem to be having any effect on Sublime Text. Now I'm going to add another example. That will be example 6. Example 6 is about printing the size of an array by counting element by element. So to do that, this is going to be done in the form of a for loop. We are going to check it and then loop through it. So you may have to include the include array header file. That is why we have the array header file added to it to be able to use that feature successfully. So now with that said, let's actually do it. I'm going to create a variable of type int and I will name it k, and create another variable of type string and I will name it subject. Let's add some values to it. First one is anatomy, biology, economics, physics, chemistry, law, engineering, marketing. So we have some elements in our array now. Let's look through it. I will use a for loop here. I'll use the keyword auto I and subjects. We could actually call it subjects. Let me say so in subjects. See out I and line there k++. So let's print it out. The length of the subject array is k. We have to print k here now. The length of the subject's array is k. Save it. Now let's clear the screen one more time. So let's run it again. Build. It was printed successfully. The length of the subject's array is 8. Two things are happening here. We have been able to loop through it and we printed it out. See out are here, and that is why the subjects are printed out each on its own line. Then the total length of the array is what we have added k to it. So k++ gives us the length of the subject array. So we have looped through it now, just like a for loop, to actually calculate the length. In the process, we printed out the elements of the array as well as printed out the total length of the array. This is another way of printing out the length of array in C++. Let's do one more example. I will call it example 7. This is a bit different from what we have been doing, and it's also a bit complex. That is, in this case, you define your own function to calculate the length of an array. This example is based on the built-in sizeof function. It's like a way of modifying that to create your own user-defined function. Example 7, using a user-defined function based on the built-in sizeof function. Note, we can put this on the header part of our file or anywhere you feel it is appropriate. But before we do that, let's quickly actually define it. Say define what? I'm going to give it a name, and I will call it zebra code. Let's type char. It's like a reference here. Type +1. Now minus char, again reference to type. So this is the line of code here, which is based on the built-in size function. So like I mentioned earlier, you can leave it in here or copy it and paste it right at the head of the page. First, let's use it. Now I am going to create a variable of data type string, and I will name it students. Now let's enter some values. First one is Emeka, Harry, Jane, Tolu, Nancy, Musa, Eddie, Laura. That's fine. Now I'm going to create another variable of data type int. I will name it num students, that is number of students, equals zebra code and student divided by, once again, zebra code students. We are going to find the index of an element there. We'll just use the element 0. So let's print it out. See out the size of the students array is number of students, end line. The size of the students array is number of students, end line. Save it. I'm going to clear the screen here so that we can run it once again. All right, now tools, build. Great, that was printed successfully. The size of the students array is 8. So we have got 8 elements in the student array. What happens if we quickly modify it by adding a few more students to it? I will just say here Barry, Prince, Donna. So now let's save it and run it one more time. Tools, build. Great, it was compiled and run successfully. The size of the students array is 11. So this is how you find the length of arrays in C++. We have used different examples to find the length of arrays in C++ during the course of this tutorial. I hope you learned something from it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, comment on it, and thank you for watching. Bye for now.